where PIF is also investing, but also we have seen very good numbers, even as late as September, numbers from the Ministry of Energy, where it indicated very clearly that the jobs created during the month are more than the job lost. We also have the National Development Fund, which basically provides ample liquidity to the private sector for their expansion and new investment and working capital. That came very handy and is supporting the private sector recovery and expansion.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now we have a question from Reuters from David Babushka. David asks, we are almost at the end of the Saudi Arabia's G20 presidency. What objectives for the G20 could not be achieved because of the unexpected pandemic?
Thank you very much. Saudi presidency started the year with a very clear agenda of basically enabling the realization of the 21st century opportunities for all, which included empowering people, protecting planet Earth, and also taking advantage of new frontier, including technology advancement. A lot of priorities have been worked on and actually have been realized. Most of them have been realized, as we have seen in today's meeting and in the Commerce and Trade Ministers meeting and the Energy Ministers meeting only in the last few weeks, and also in the various other ministers meeting. But then COVID-19 came, and we had also to adapt our agenda to deal with COVID-19. And we achieved a lot of things that have never been done in the G20. 11 trillion that actually put a floor on the global economy, which helped very efficiently to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, ensure that the global economy and the communities and the people are supported. That resulted in, as we have seen, the projections by the IMF and others to be readjusted, actually, to be more optimistic than they were during April. But we did not stop there. We also looked at those who are less fortunate and low-income countries and poor countries, and what can we do to help them during this crisis. And for the first time during the G20 history, DSSI, the Debt Service Suspension Initiative, was agreed on April for 6 months. 46 countries benefited from it. It is available for 73 countries. These countries also benefited from $75 billion of support from the multilateral development institutions. In addition to that, we looked at what needs to be done more. We asked the IMF and the World Bank to look at the DSSI. They came with certain recommendations. It was discussed by the G20 members, and we agreed today to extend the DSSI for another 6 months. We did not stop there. We even looked at what do they need more, and we agreed the common framework and principle, which basically looks at the debt beyond the DSSI. We also looked at the health area and how can we bridge the gap in financing and preparedness. 21 billion was raised by the G20 and others in the last few months to ensure that we have a better prepared world to deal with this COVID-19 pandemic very quickly, in terms of developing vaccines, in terms of developing and quickly distributing personal protective equipment, developing therapeutics. These are underway. Funds have been already dispersed and benefiting the world. So a lot has been achieved, and I am very, very proud that with the cooperation of the G20 members and the international community, we were able to not only achieve most of our priorities under the G20 Saudi presidency, but also deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and the health and economic consequences.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now we have a question from a local media outlet. سؤال من أماني يماني من صحيفة مكة. السؤال هو: هل سيتم زيادة العون للدول المستفيدة من تعليق مدفوعات خدمة الدين عن العدد الموجود حالياً؟ وكيف سيتم ضمان أن الدول المعفية ستوجه مواردها بالفعل نحو مكافحة آثار الجائحة؟
شكرا جزيلا أختي إيمان. مجموعة ال20 بالتعاون مع المنظمات الدولية بما في ذلك صندوق النقد الدولي ومجموعة البنك الدولي عملت على مبادرة تأجيل وإيقاف سداد خدمة الدين من الدول الفقيرة. تستفيد منها 73 دولة. 46 دولة فعلياً استفادت حتى الآن فقط خلال الشهور الماضية. عملنا مع البنك الدولي وصندوق النقد الدولي وتم التوافق اليوم في مجموعة ال20 على تمديد هذه المبادرة لمدة 6 أشهر، مع النظر في تمديدها لمدة 6 أشهر أخرى في اجتماعنا القادم في أبريل 21. لم نتوقف على هذا، وإنما نظرنا إلى ما هي احتياجات هذه الدول، وتم إطلاق مبادرة جديدة للنظر في ديون هذه الدول وماذا يمكن أن يتم العمل عليه لمساعدة هذه الدول لجعل ديونها ووضعها المالي أكثر استدامة. المبادرة تختص بالدول الفقيرة جدا، لكن هناك مبادرات أيضا عملت مجموعة ال20 بالتعاون مع صندوق النقد الدولي ومجموعة البنك الدولي عليها. تم إطلاق 230 مليار ريال كمبادرة لدعم الدول النامية خارج حتى نطاق الدول الفقيرة. صندوق النقد الدولي حتى الأسبوع الماضي صرف أكثر من 101 مليار دولار على 81 دولة لدعمها في مواجهة الجائحة، دعم مواطنيها ودعم اقتصادها. هناك مبادرات متعددة، وأعتقد مجموعة ال20 أثبتت بما لا يدع مجال للشك أنها المجموعة التي تقود الاقتصاد العالمي بإذن الله تعالى إلى النهوض من جديد والعودة إلى النمو المستدام. The question from Amani was about DSSI initiative and whether there is more to be done for these poor countries and whether more countries can be included. And the response is that G20 have taken its role very seriously. Under the Saudi presidency, we agreed the DSSI with the Paris Club. 73 countries are beneficiaries of this initiative. 46 countries have already benefited from this. We agreed today to extend it by 6 months, and also agreed that during our April 21 meeting, we will look into the need for extending it even more. And we did not stop there, but we also looked at what can we do for the debt sustainability of these countries beyond the DSSI, and agreed the common framework principles that we will work on between now and November meeting, with the aim of agreeing the common framework to support these countries beyond the DSSI. I also mentioned that multiple initiatives through the G20, working with the IMF and the World Bank, are underway to support more countries, more developing countries. And to give an example, until last week, the IMF provided support to 81 countries with an amount of $101 billion. This is the largest ever in the history of the IMF. And more obviously initiatives have been carried out by the World Bank Group and unilaterally by the G20 members. So I'm really, really proud of the G20 partners, the financial institutions. They have taken this role very seriously and have achieved a lot during this year.
Thank you very much, Minister. I believe we only have time for one more question. A question from the Financial Times from Jonathan. The question is, debtor countries and the private sector have asked to be consulted on the design of the DSSI and the common framework on debt sustainability. Will that be possible in the future?
Thank you. And I said earlier, I sympathize. And if I am one of these poor countries, I would have two messages to the world. I would say I need more support. I need more help on not only delaying payments of the debt, but also dealing with my fiscal sustainability at large. And I would also say that the private investors should participate. I am, as a country, have been borrowing from private investors, and these private investors have benefited from high yields for an extended period of time. It's about time during this crisis that private investors also participate. I'll go back now to my role as the presidency of the G20, and I would say that we did not leave any stone unturned. We looked at this, we called upon the private investors to participate, we engaged with them, we have worked with the Institute of International Finance to ensure that we have a coordination on putting forward a framework for voluntary participation by the private investors. We also participated with the beneficiary countries through the IMF and the World Bank, where these countries have actually very large representations in these institutions, to make sure that we hear them and we understand their concerns, and hence the design of the DSSI, the extension of the DSSI, and the common framework to look at beyond DSSI what should be done in relation to the debt sustainability.
Thank you, Minister Al-Jud'an and Governor Al-Khalifi, for your time and valuable remarks today. Many thanks as well to those who submitted their questions from various media outlets from around the world. Thank you very much. شكرا جزيلا لكل من تواصل معنا خلال هذا المؤتمر الصحفي، مع تمنياتي للجميع بدوام الصحة والعافية. شكرا.